On one of Paris's most elegant avenues, Avenue Montaigne, stands a theater unlike any other in the city. With clean lines, classical themes, and reinforced concrete bones, the Théâtre des Champs-Élysées was a quiet revolution. Completed in 1913, this building marked the arrival of architectural modernism in France, not through rejection of history, but through a new clarity of form, material, and purpose. At the dawn of the 20th century, Paris was the capital of culture, sophistication, and style. The Beaux-Arts tradition still dominated the architectural landscape, with opulent ornamentation, classical columns, and symmetrical compositions. But under this polished surface, the seeds of modernity were being planted in literature, in music, and soon, in architecture. The Champs-Élysées district, traditionally associated with bourgeois luxury, would soon be home to a theater that would break all expectations, not just in what was performed inside, but how it looked outside. The idea for the Théâtre des Champs-Élysées came from the Société Musicale Indépendante, which needed a new home for avant-garde music. Banker Gabriel Astruc was the man behind the project, bold, forward-thinking, and ready to challenge the establishment. For the design, Astruc commissioned the brothers Auguste and Gustave Perret, pioneers in the use of reinforced concrete, and the sculptor-architect Henri Sauvage, whose rationalist approach would shape the building's soul. Together, they envisioned a structure that combined the monumentality of antiquity with the purity of the modern. The Théâtre des Champs-Élysées was groundbreaking not because it denied the past, but because it filtered tradition through the lens of modern materials and function. Reinforced concrete as expression. For the first time in Paris, a major cultural building was constructed almost entirely in reinforced concrete. This allowed large spans, thin walls, and monumental geometry without stone. Classicism in modern dress. While the layout follows classical principles, symmetry, axial progression, the ornamentation is restrained, geometric, and stylized. Reliefs by Antoine Bourdelle and murals by Maurice Denis and Edouard Vuillard evoke myth, not opulence. Function-driven design. The layout, auditorium, foyers, stage, is rational and efficient. Acoustics were prioritized. The use of balconies and stairs followed the movement of people, not compositional symmetry. A Gesamtkunstwerk. Like Gaudi or Wagner, the Perrets saw architecture as a total work of art. Every chair, every sconce, every line spoke the same language. Completed in 1913, the Théâtre des Champs-Élysées stood like no other theater in Paris. Its smooth white facade, rhythmic pilasters, and low-relief sculpture created an impression of timeless elegance, but also unsettling modernity. Exterior simplicity. The facade is symmetrical, yet almost abstract. Its lack of heavy ornament shocked the Parisian elite. It was pure volume, punctuated by art. The auditorium. Inside, the oval-shaped hall offered clear sightlines and acoustics, designed for the new music of Debussy, Stravinsky, and Ravel. Art and architecture unified. From the stained glass windows to the sculpted frieze of Apollo and the Muses, every detail was part of the narrative: music, myth, and modernity. The Théâtre des Champs-Élysées became a stage for innovation. In May 1913, it hosted the now infamous premiere of Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, which caused a riot in the audience and ushered in the modern era in music. It was the first major modern building in Paris. It introduced reinforced concrete as a refined material for cultural architecture, and it launched the careers of artists and architects who would define the 20th century. Among them was a young Charles-Édouard Jeanneret, later known as Le Corbusier, who joined Auguste Perret's atelier shortly after the theater's completion. Under Perret's guidance, Le Corbusier absorbed the structural logic and expressive potential of reinforced concrete, which would later become the backbone of his own architectural revolution. The Théâtre des Champs-Élysées thus became more than a single landmark. It was a blueprint for the future, where new materials, stripped of ornament, gave rise to new visions of space, culture, and life itself. In a city known for its theatrical facades, the Théâtre des Champs-Élysées whispered something new: modernity, not as rupture, but as refinement. Where others saw spectacle, it revealed structure. Where others built in stone, it cast in concrete. And in doing so, it shaped the minds of visionaries like Le Corbusier, who would carry modernism to every corner of the globe. If this journey into Paris's most quietly radical theater inspired you, subscribe to Space Shape and Scale for more cinematic stories of architecture's turning points, visionary design, and the places where culture changed shape. What does it take to make something sacred? Stone? Gold? 1,000 years of tradition? Or is it something else? Something lighter? Something new? In a quiet Parisian suburb in the aftermath of war, a new kind of cathedral rose, not from marble or myth, but from concrete and courage. They said it couldn't be done. A church, built not with arches or domes, but with industrial concrete, poured and reinforced. A sanctuary, not carved in stone, but assembled with prefabricated panels like a factory or a garage. In the eyes of tradition, it was heresy. In the eyes of the future, it was revelation. This is the story of a church born not of abundance, but of scarcity. Not from ornament, but from honesty. Not to honor a past, but to imagine a new sacred future. In 1922, France was rebuilding, not just its cities, but its soul. Villages were shattered, resources were gone, but faith endured. In Raincy, east of Paris, a modest parish had lost its church. They needed a new one, quickly, cheaply, and differently. Their priest, Father Félix Negre, dreamed of something humble yet transcendent. He didn't turn to the past. He turned to Auguste Perret, a man known not for churches, but for his love of concrete. What followed was a miracle of modernity. After the devastation of World War I, France needed to rebuild not just its cities, but its spirit. The suburb of Raincy was growing fast. Working-class families settled among quiet streets, but their parish church had been destroyed. Resources were scarce, but the need was urgent. The local priest, Father Félix Negre, dreamed of a sanctuary that could be built quickly and economically, but still inspire awe. He turned to architect Auguste Perret, a pioneer in reinforced concrete, to create something that would answer both necessity and transcendence. In 1922, Perret was already known for his radical use of concrete. When approached by Father Negre, the challenge was clear. Build a church in under a year with limited funds, using a material most considered unworthy of sacred space. Perret accepted, because to him, concrete wasn't just practical, it was expressive. And in Notre-Dame de Raincy, he would show the world that modernity and spirituality could live under the same roof. Perret believed in clarity, honesty, and light, and his church became a manifesto in concrete. Let's break it down. Reinforced concrete as sacred material. One of the first churches in the world built entirely from concrete. No marble, no stone, just a new industrial material, elevated to divine use. Structure as ornament. The grid of slender columns is not hidden, it's celebrated. Framing stained glass panels instead of heavy stone walls. A forest of light. Over 300 vertical windows fill the church with colored light. The walls dissolve into rhythm and radiance, a spiritual atmosphere of weightless transcendence. Economy and repetition, prefabricated elements allowed for rapid assembly. The repeating column panel rhythm becomes like a hymn, simple, modular, yet profoundly harmonious. Completed in just 1 year, Notre-Dame de Raincy astonished the architectural world. The exterior, its facade, is austere, almost minimalist. Yet the tall, freestanding bell tower rises with grace, a signal to the neighborhood. This is sacred ground. The nave inside, the effect is ethereal. Slim columns rise like trees in a forest of light. Thin concrete vaults span across the nave, and the walls, they disappear into color. The stained glass, created by Marguerite Huret, the glass panels avoid traditional figures. Instead, they use abstract color and geometry, bathing the interior in blues, golds, and crimsons, shifting like prayer itself. The roof and belfry. The folded roof forms and belfry suggest Gothic verticality, but reimagined in the language of concrete. It's ancient spirituality, spoken in a modern dialect. Notre-Dame de Raincy was nothing short of revolutionary. It proved that reinforced concrete, once dismissed as crude, could be a vessel for the sacred, a medium of light, grace, and transcendence. It redefined how structure, material, and spirituality could coexist, and in doing so, it inspired generations of architects across the world. Among those touched by Perret's vision was a young apprentice in his office, Charles-Édouard Jeanneret, who would later become known as Le Corbusier. From Perret, he learned the expressive potential of concrete. He carried that lesson into a new architectural language, pushing it toward abstraction, minimalism, and modernism. And though their styles diverged, the DNA of Raincy lived on in the very foundations of 20th century architecture. In Raincy, a humble Paris dream became a masterpiece of sacred design. Notre-Dame de Raincy teaches us that beauty is not in the cost of materials, but in the spirit of design. That modernity doesn't mean abandoning tradition, but translating it into something new. Auguste Perret gave us more than a church. He gave us a vision that architecture can be both economical and eternal, both minimal and mystical. If this journey into one of the 20th century's most luminous churches inspired you, subscribe to Space, Shape, and Scale. Every week we uncover the turning points, the visionaries, and the spaces that shaped our world. More myths, more masterpieces, more meaning.